Now, after finishing the two sets of rights covering equality and freedom, we now move on to discuss about the next two rights, which are about right against exploitation. So we have done till article number 22. Now we'll see articles 23 and 24. These are not very lengthy articles, so will not take much of your time. As you can see here, smaller explanations are covered here. Now, when we talk about right against exploitation, there are two rights under this. Article 23 says prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. 24 says prohibition of employment of children in factories, etc. So remember, exploitation here is dealing with children in article number 24 and dealing with human trafficking or forced labor in article number 23. But now we have to see the details of it. The first clause of article 23 says traffic in human beings and begar and other similar forms of forced labor are prohibited. So firstly, you are seeing that it is prohibited. What are things are prohibited? They are giving you three keywords for that. First, they are telling trafficking in human beings, begar and similar forms of forced labor. So 1, 2 and 3, जिसको हम अभी थोड़े डिटेल में देखेंगे, they are prohibited. And the second part of it says any contravention of this provision. So if this provision is not followed, it shall be an offense which is punishable in accordance with the law. So in short, if this is in contravention, which means if it is not followed, it will be a punishable offense. ठीक है. Now we have to see firstly the three words here: the human trafficking, begar and the forced labor, and then we will talk about this clause 2. ठीक है. So firstly let's see article 23 का clause 1. So we have seen that if contravention, then punishable offense will be there. Now this article gives us protection not only against the state but also against the private persons, because human trafficking and all of that, forced labor, ये तो कोई दूसरा इंसान भी आपसे कराएगा ना, करा सकता है मतलब. And therefore this gives us protection against state and private persons both. Now we have seen three terms here. First term क्या था? Trafficking in human beings. So what are the explanations for trafficking in human beings? Now human trafficking means जैसे ट्रेड होता है ना, illegal trade जो होता है. अच्छा, in general also if you understand about the idea of trade, what does it mean? It means selling and buying. Trade is about that exchange. So here human trafficking means selling and buying of men, women and children like goods. So like you trade goods, you are trading the humans, and that is your trafficking, or in case other words you can say selling and buying. Another implication of this word traffic means immoral trafficking in women and children, including prostitution. ठीक है. Then for the Devadasis and for the slavery. So these implications are there for human trafficking when it uses the broader term of human trafficking. And to prevent this, these from happening, the Parliament has made Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. Now see, in the case of preventive detention also, you have understood that the power was given to the Parliament to make a law. ठीक है. If you notice this here, ये तो दिया हुआ है कि Parliament क्या क्या prescribe कर सकती है, but talking about the preventive detention, here only it was given that no law which will provide should be having these criteria, which means the Constitution is giving that power or authorizing the Parliament to make a law for preventive detention. Now here in this also you will notice that because it is about the protection against state and private persons both, therefore it is very important for the state to, or let's say the legislative body, to come up with a law to ensure that this is not happening. Then human trafficking should be covered by, hope you have understood about the first keyword here. Next, talking about the term begar. Now this used to be a you would say a indigenous system, something that was unique to India. This was happening कि जो जमींदार्स होते थे वो अपने टेनेंट्स को फोर्सिबली काम कराते थे. ठीक है. So this is also a form of forced labor, but they were making them work forcibly and compulsorily without any remuneration, without payment. So this was the prevalent system that was happening. The zamindars, they were using the tenants, they were making them work forcibly and they were not giving them the payments. तो इसको भी यहाँ पे prohibit करने की बात की जा रही है. And it was given that similar forms of forced labor. What could be the other forms of forced labor? For example, compelling a person to work against his will. Right? A person is not willing. Now here when we talk about against his will, that can have n number of implications. Physically issues हो सकते हैं, economically है ना, issues हो सकते हैं, legal issues हो सकते हैं. What kind of economic issues? For example, let's say you are not giving the person the adequate amount, so being paid less than the adequate payment. So for that work, whatever payment should be genuine, the person is paid less than that. So the person can say that I am not willing to do this work, right? But still you are making the other person work. Here the idea is payment is not made. So free of cost you are asking somebody or forcing somebody to work. Here you might be paying to the person but less than what actually should have been paid. But that is also a forced labor. So to prevent this from happening, also several acts have been made. Okay, and we'll see certain examples about it. Now Article 23 also gives an exception. So till here we were discussing, till this point of time we were discussing the clause 1 of Article 23. This is the clause 1 of Article 23. Now when we say clause 2, it gives an exception to this prohibition. What does it say? That nothing in this article shall prevent the state from imposing compulsory service. The key word here is compulsory, because this is what is given in this article कि compulsory आप forcibly किसी से कुछ नहीं करा सकते. But here the state can impose compulsory service for certain public purposes. What could be certain public purposes? For example, let's say any military help that you need, military service basically, not help. Let's say military service that you need from the public, or any social service work that you need from the public, then compulsory services can be asked by the state from you. And in imposing such service, the state shall not make any discrimination on grounds. So if the state is asking for certain service from the citizens, of course for this they do not need to pay. I mean, if that is there, if there is some serious situation, it is okay if they do not pay. But the discrimination should not happen on the grounds of religion, race, caste, class, or any of them. So the exception is that state can impose compulsory service for public purposes like military or social, and they are not bound to pay for that, but no discrimination should happen on the basis of religion, race, caste, or class. I hope Article 23 is clear to you. Moving on to see Article number 24, which is also in right against exploitation. It says prohibition of employment of children in factories, etc. So we are asking about that children, because if you are making children work, that is also exploitation. So we are prohibiting the children from working in factories, etc. Now see the broader connotation of that. It says no child, because children है तो आपका कोई cut off age भी तो होगा ना. There has to be certain cut off age. So no child below the age of 14 years. So here the cut off age is 14 years. No child shall be employed to work in any factory. What are the areas which are mentioned here? Factory is mentioned, mind is mentioned, or engaged in any other hazardous employment. Hazardous मतलब जो जहाँ hazard का खतरा हो, जहाँ खतरा हो किसी तरीके का बच्चे को. So 14 साल के तक के बच्चे को हम नहीं काम करवा सकते हैं. Now notice that in the original constitution they have not talked about the let's say the safer places. Let's say dhabas हो गया, restaurant हो गया, जहाँ आपने देखा होगा the tea stalls, all of that, hotels, wherein they are making the children work, or they were making, because now it is actually not allowed. But how did it come? We'll talk about it. But the original constitution do not talk about it. Original constitution talks only about factory, mine, or any hazardous employment. So hazardous employment can include your, for example, construction work, building बन रही है, roads बन रहे हैं, railways है, ports है, etc. So It prohibits the employment of children below 14 years in any factory, mine, or any other hazardous activities like construction or railway. But it does not prohibit employment in any harmless or innocent work, as I just said. But ये तो original constitution है. Several government initiatives later happened in this case, and all the details are given in the book, and that we will now see in detail that later how the government prohibited that. So these are certain acts which firstly have, all of these are the government initiatives that we will see right now, all of these. So firstly, there are certain acts which are prohibiting the employment of children below a certain age, 14 साल का जो है, जिसमें सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट एक्ट कौन सा है? चाइल्ड लेबर प्रोहिबिशन एंड रेगुलेशन एक्ट 1986, most important law in this direction. The other acts are also given, you can just read the names for that. For example, Employment of Children Act, Factories Act, Mines Act, Merchant Shipping, Plantation Labor, Motor Transport Workers, Apprentice Act, BD and Cigar Workers Act, and similar acts. ठीक है, as you can see ये सब hazardous activities से related हैं. अब ये वाला जो है, this is very important, इससे related एक information है, वो क्या है? That in 2016 इसी एक्ट में 1986 का जो ये ओरिजिनल एक्ट you can see here, this was amended and it was renamed as Child and Adolescent Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. Earlier the name was only child labor, now the name changed to Child and Adolescent Labor, so that there is no confusion with respect to age. ठीक है, अब उधर ही क्या हुआ 2006 में, as you can see here, in 2006 the government also banned the employment of children as domestic servants, although it was not given in the original constitution, but later the government did it, that children will not be employed as domestic servant or workers in any business establishment जो commercial purpose established है, like hotels, dhabas, restaurants, shops, factories, resorts, spas, tea shops, etc. And if anyone employs children below 14 years of age, they will be liable for prosecution and the penal action. ठीक है, तो अब allowed नहीं है. उसके अलावा another initiative is that the Supreme Court in 1996 directed that there should be establishment of a fund. What is the name of the fund they recommended? Child Labor Rehabilitation Welfare Fund. आप समझ रहे हो, rehabilitation है तो उनके welfare के लिए है. Now in this fund, who will contribute? Any employer, offending employer who has offended the act and has not followed this regulation. So despite of the regulation, if an employer employs the children below the age of 14 years, they need to deposit a fine of rupees 20,000 for each child that they have employed. वो सारा पैसा इस fund में चला जाएगा. The Supreme Court also issued directions that there should be steps taken for improvement of education, health and nutrition of the children. Then we have another act that came in 2005, which is Commissions for Protection of Child Rights Act 2005. अब यहाँ पर क्या है, जैसे आपने NCPCR सुना होगा ना, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ चाइल्ड, नेशनल कमीशन फॉर प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ चाइल्ड राइट्स. उसके अलावा स्टेट कमीशंस भी हैं सिमिलरली, दैट विल डू इन बॉडीज ऑल्सो बाद में, बट सच कमीशंस वर ऑल्सो एस्टैब्लिश्ड. एंड यहाँ पर भी बात की गई that we will establish these commissions for the protection of the child rights and also children's court. Why children's court are needed? So that we provide speedy trial of any offense, क्योंकि जो भी बच्चों से related हैं, children and violation of child rights, so all those offenses should not go for very long and there should be speedy trial for that. So all of these initiatives have been taken by the government to ensure that we are prohibiting the child labor basically. And this is what the constitution has given verbatim in article number 24, as you can see here. So with this we are done with the right against exploitation also. Now in the next set of classes we will cover the right to freedom of religion, which has your articles 25, 26, 27 and 28. Then उसके बाद next set आएगा, उसको हम बाद में करेंगे. So hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much guys. Take care till then. Bye bye.